Welcome to our 20th Traveling Thursday, our free webinar series that we started almost 2 years ago. So we are very excited and pleased that you have joined us tonight. As you can see on the screen, we are traveling to Turks Caicos tonight. So let me just go over a few things. What to expect tonight. We will do a few introductions. Then we will hear about Turks Caicos. Where is it? Introducing the Turks Caicos Explorer. Diving in the Turks Caicos. What is that like? We will have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, which means save your questions till the end, and then you can put them in the chat, and we will get to as many questions as we can. Our goal is always to keep these webinars to about an hour. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get notification when it's there. There is now 20 webinars there, which is a little bit of a library of the various trips that we offer and the destinations and the liveaboards and resorts that we work with. And we have many more to come and up our sleeves. And then at the very end, there'll be another surprise today, and we will also be talking about our next date. So a little bit of an introduction. Those of you who have been on our webinars before, and many of you have seen this before. That's our team here at Flying Sea Dive Adventures. That's our Christmas party in December. We have been doing dive travel since 1997. And you guessed it, that means it is our 25th anniversary this year. Some of you have already seen this on our newsletter or Facebook and Instagram, and there will be lots of activities and incentives to book with us and fun contests that you will be able to follow. Over 70 years of combined experience among us. That means you can entrust us with your travel plans. We represent over 40 dive destinations in the world, dive and adventure travel. Sometimes we like to combine a dive trip with an adventure experience. 100 plus resorts and 100 plus liveaboards that we do work with. We are IATA appointed. That means that we can issue and control our own tickets. And as I mentioned before, individual trips and group trips. A lot of group trips are organized through dive shops that work with us and have been working with us for many, many years. I want to say a few words to our 25th anniversary. So starting this month, 25 is sort of our fun number this year. So because of the birthday or the anniversary, there'll be lots of things on the 25th and 25 things, so to speak. So what we're doing for this month, leading up to the 25th of February, is asking you to submit your top 3 most favorite dive destinations to us. You can post that on Facebook, on Instagram, or email us at diving@flyandsea.com. We pick the top 25 that have been submitted. You're sort of voting like this on the top dive destinations in the world, and publish those in next month's newsletter. And on the 25th of February, we will be drawing for a $100 gift card. And so every month there will be something about 25. So keep watching for that. Subscribe to our newsletter so that you will be in the know. Now, obviously, you haven't had a chance to do something for the month of January. So us at Flying Sea decided that we are doing something or have done something. We have come up with, among the 5 of us, 25 reasons why we love what we do. or why we love our jobs. And you can find this on our website. Either if you scroll all the way down, you see our blog posts, or directly through this link, 25 Reasons Why We Love What We Do. So we invite you to peruse that. And I do want to say, 25 years in business, especially the last few years, have been quite a challenge in the travel industry. And so we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for the vendors like Explorer Ventures that have been supporting us and been super flexible to work with, and also the dive shops that we work with. I don't know, probably a few dive shop owners are on the call tonight as well. And all of that together is really sustaining us. And we really thank you for that and appreciate that very, very much. A couple of words to travel and COVID, and I am not going to spend a lot of time on this right now, but vaccination and testing and insurance are three super important pieces for traveling right now and probably for a while to come. So we will always inform you what the necessary requirements are. And that's also why we're so busy, because countries and destinations keep changing this. Masks continue to be very important, and just my own travel experience recently, don't travel with your mask that your grandma or aunt made you. It now needs to be a medical or KN or N95 mask. In many countries, you can't use homemade masks anymore. I want to introduce Jean from Explorer Ventures, who is on the screen here with us. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jean. And Jean is taking it away and taking us to Turks and Caicos.
Well, thank you so much, Petra, and thank you all that have signed in to this. It's just a pleasure to talk about Explorer Ventures, but particularly about the Turks and Caicos Explorer. It's probably one of my favorite destinations for live aboard in any of the places that I've traveled to over the past 25 years. During this webinar, we hope to learn more about the Turks and Caicos Explorer 2, and then also a bit about the Turks and Caicos itself, the type of destination it is, what it has to offer. And then we'll get into the details about the Turks and Caicos Explorer 2. What are the cabins like? Is there a sun deck? What does the dive deck look like? All of those details that are important for a comfortable vacation, but also all of the necessities for divers. Then we'll take a look at the actual process of diving in the Turks and Caicos and a little bit about what you should expect to see on a typical trip. As we get towards the end, we're going to go put on a video that really integrates all of the different pieces that we've been talking about. So hang in there with me, and let's get started. The Turks and Caicos are just a little bit south of the Bahamas. Actually, one of the islands in the Turks and Caicos is actually a bit north of the Bahamas, or the most further island in the Bahamas. You can see on the map right here, the Turks and Caicos are part of the logical stream of islands that run all the way down, starting off with Grand Bahama Island up north off the coast of Florida, going all the way down just above the island of Hispaniola. The Turks and Caicos were originally settled by the Lucayan Indians many, many years long before Columbus ever landed in the island of Grand Turk, the current location of the capital. The Turk reference in Turks and Caicos actually refers to the Turk's head cactus, and the Caicos comes from the Lucayan language meaning a string of islands. Not surprisingly, after after Columbus entered the so-called New World, the Lucayan civilization largely disappeared, and the islands of Turks and Caicos were really scantily, barely occupied by much of anybody. As typical in early European exploration of the Caribbean, the Spanish had the Turks and Caicos for a period of time, the French had the Turks and Caicos, and then finally the British ended up with the Turks and Caicos. At one time, it was a part of the crown colony of Bermuda, and then eventually ended up as a part of Jamaica. And Jamaica was the administrator for the Turks and Caicos. In 1962, when Jamaica became independent of the British Empire, then the Turks and Caicos was able to stand on its own. At this time, I probably should mention that the Turks and Caicos are also the logical spot for a liveaboard to move on down to the Silver Bank area off the coast of Dominican Republic. And the Silver Bank area is the home for humpback whales that migrate there every year. So when we're talking about diving in the Turks and Caicos and on the Turks and Caicos Explorer, we're talking about diving in Turks and Caicos. But the Turks and Caicos Explorer is in the Silver Bank area off the coast of the Dominican Republic from mid-January until the first week of April, where they operate the whale watching trips. The islands of the Turks and Caicos, the main island and the island that we actually operate out of is Providenciales, and that's this area right here. So in Providenciales, you have the airport, the main entry into Turks and Caicos, and then you have a whole series of hotels all along this particular area, Grace Bay Beach. Now, tourism in Turks and Caicos really didn't start until in the early 1980s, when Club Med, of all places, opened up. And Club Med really was the very first resort that catered to tourists. And the main thing that Turks and Caicos offers people, and particularly the island of Providenciales, is this. This is Grace Bay Beach, and this is an entire string of beach that is just one of the prettiest in the Caribbean. So for people that are not divers, they can spend their entire time lounging on the beach. It's also real good for your customers, for people that may want to arrive in Turks and Caicos, maybe a couple of days before their trip, and they could stay right on Grace Bay Beach. And it is just absolutely gorgeous. As I mentioned, Turks and Caicos is very much like the Bahamas. It is a flat, generally dry type island. You can see here that this is about as high as the Turks and Caicos Islands, or at least Providenciales, goes. So when you get easterly breezes, you feel them. And that's quite often in this part of the Caribbean. So moving into travel details, Turks and Caicos has excellent airfare. There are direct flights seasonally from Toronto and Montreal, nonstop into Providenciales. And then there's also direct airfare available from 10, sometimes more, gateways out of the US. So you have good air service there, and it's relatively convenient. The COVID requirements in the Turks and Caicos are you require a full COVID-19 vaccination. You need a full series, including being boosted. You must provide a negative PCR taken within 3 days of arrival. You need to provide insurance, which covers COVID medical cost, full hospitalization, doctor visits, prescriptions, emergency air ambulance, and then you need to upload all of that information to the Turks and Caicos folks and obtain your TCI assured approval prior to entering the islands. Okay, let's talk about the Turks and Caicos Explorer 2. The Turks and Caicos Explorer was actually built from ground up in 1995 as a luxury yacht. And the Explorer Ventures purchased it in 2005, in February of 2005, and modified it to meet the needs of divers. It's 124 feet, 37.8 meters. It has a beam of 22 feet, holds 20 guests in 10 staterooms. Those staterooms are spread across 3 different decks. Crew is 7 staff, including at least 2 dive guides. English is the main language used on the boat, with occasional crew that are Spanish speaking or French. We almost always have a Quebecer as our captain on the Turks and Caicos Explorer, so we typically have French availability there. We have electricity, 220 volt and 110 volt. Recharging stations are available. Recharging is not allowed in your cabin. We have plenty of supply of fresh water, 2 Bauer compressors that pump air, but then also we have a nitrox membrane system that consistently produces about 32% nitrox. In addition to the 3 decks that have the cabins in them, we have a dining area, we have a lounge, we have a large sunning area, and we have a flybridge, which has a delightful lounge and a wet bar, which is always enjoyable, particularly on your way back to port when you're done with your diving, or maybe after a long day of diving. So let's start off and look at the boat. We have 20 guests as our maximum on the boat for customers, for divers. Our typical itineraries are 8 days, 7 nights. We depart from Providenciales and we return to Providenciales. We have 5.5 days of diving, weather and conditions dependent, with up to 5 days of diving. So when you consider your last day of diving, Friday morning, the enthusiastic diver can easily get 27 dives in during a week. All of the diving, as you can see from this picture of the stern of the boat, is done from the stern of the boat, from the large platform with 2 ladders at the very back of the boat. So let's explore this boat and see what we have to offer. We're going to start at the top. We're going to start at the flybridge, and we're going to skip over the main deck because that's a long story in and of itself. So here we go. Flybridge. It is the very top of the boat. It is accessed by semicircular stairs from the boat deck, and it has seating for 12 to 15, wet bar, and it's also an auxiliary helm station for the captain. Here's another view of the flybridge. The last time I was on the boat, after every dive, I spent my time playing backgammon with the guy who routinely rousted me each and every time, but it's such a pleasant place to be. you can see from this picture also just how flat the islands are. This particular island here is probably West Caicos, but that's pretty much how the entire Turks and Caicos Island stream goes. It's very flat and very dry. Okay, moving on down to the boat deck. The boat deck has two cabins. It has what we call our VIP staterooms, 1 and 2. These cabins have a queen-sized bed, fixed queen bed, desk, chair, private bathroom, shower. And then outside of that area, we have the pilot house for the captain and access to the captain's stateroom. This cabin is probably the most popular cabin on the boat, cabin 1 and 2, depending if you like to look to the right or the left side of the boat. But it is it's a delightful cabin to hang out on. And with it just being at the boat deck above the everything else, it's quite private as well. Here's the rest of the boat deck. The boat deck is basically a sunning deck, but also it's the deck where, if you're lucky, the captain will get out and have a barbecue once or twice during the week. This is also for those folks that have been on a liveaboard before. This is where 90% of the dive gear ends up at the end of the trip on your way back to port, because it's the ideal drying station for your gear when people aren't laying in the lounges. Okay, let's move on to the next deck. Skipping the main deck, we have the lower deck. The lower deck of the vessel includes the compressor dive gear storage aft, and then 3 cabins. These are 3 cabins with an upper, lower twin wardrobe, hanging closet, your own air conditioning controls, and then your own private bathroom and shower for each cabin. So this is it's a nice, convenient. It is the less expensive cabin on the boat, as you might imagine. The thing that most people ask is, well, how do I, if there's an emergency, if there's a problem, how do I get here, get out? What do I do? And you actually have 3 ways to exit. You have this staircase that goes up to the main deck, another staircase that goes up to the main deck, and then you have the exit through the engine room, should that be needed. Okay, let's get to the, here's the picture of the lower deck, cabin 10. Again, you have the bathroom, you have your own shower, and then you have an upper and a lower bunk. Actually, these are fairly spacious cabins, and I slept quite well in one of them one time. Okay, let's move to the main deck, which is where most of your time will be spent. But let's look at the cabins first. We have 5 cabins here on the main deck of the boat. The the cabins up towards the bow, cabin 3 and 4, have twin lower fixed beds. Cabins 5, 6, and 7 have beds that can be made into a queen bed or can be made into 2 twin beds. So if you have a small group of folks, if you're traveling with different folks, maybe you're going with your family and you have a couple of kids, people can be in cabin 5, have the bed together, and they could have cabin 6 right across the hall and have 2 twin beds. The rest of the main deck is also where the dive operations take place. And we'll get into the specifics of the dive deck, but it's also where the salon is and where the galley, and then obviously the dive deck. And here's a picture of what cabin 3 looks like. Cabins 5, 6, 7 are very similar, dash larger, and then the beds are simply put together and make a fine, comfortable queen-size bed. Again, you have your private head, shower, and sink there for each of the cabins. Here is the salon. This is where people gather for a variety of things. Oftentimes, your initial boat briefing by the captain will occur in this area in the salon. It's an area to pull out the guides, the fish ID guides, and to find out what you looked at today and what that thing was, and look at all of that. At certain times of the day, generally when the diving is done, you can see towards the very back a series of bottles standing up there. Those bottles can only be consumed after your diving is done, but they always have a good selection of some wines and other alcoholic beverages for people to enjoy when they're done diving. This is also the slot where obviously people get together and they share their morning meals and lunch and dinner as well, unless it's being served out on the fly bridge or someplace else. The meals on the boat are usually served buffet style. The evening meals usually consist of lots of fresh vegetables, rice, pasta, chicken, beef. Breakfast is usually a fare of eggs, bacon, pancakes, French toast, Danish, fresh fruit. And lunches vary from soup and sandwiches, burgers, pasta, and assorted salads. If people have dietary restrictions, we really do a good job adjusting to the dietary needs of our folks. But people need to be aware that we can't always find those specific things on islands. So please, when people join us, we ask them to make sure we know of their specific dietary restrictions or needs, so we can let you know for sure that we can accommodate it, and if not, what else we can offer. Snacks are a common thing. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's when you get out of the water and you get your gear off, the first thing you grab is a towel. The second thing you grab is a cookie or a muffin, because one will always be within arm's length when you're getting off the boat or getting on the boat from a dive. Okay, moving on to the reason that most people jump on this boat, and that's to go diving. We have a very spacious dive deck. It's equipped with a bathroom, so you don't have to drag your wetsuit and gear into the main salon. We have individual gear bins, a camera table, recharging stations, air and nitrox filling stations, and you notice the whips that are right behind the divers sitting on right above their gear. That's where each of the tanks are filled with either nitrox or air after each dive in preparation of the next. We have 800 cubic foot aluminum tanks. We have 5 100 tanks for 15 liters, and we have 3 63s. So if you have a specific request for a tank, make sure you let us know. Our tank valves can handle both din and yoke. They are those convertible style tanks, so you don't need to bring your adapter if you're a din diver. We have freshwater showers in the back. We have separate freshwater rinse for both gear and separate rinse for camera equipment. And then we have those 2 large stairways when you saw the stern of the boat that offers access down to the dive platform. Now, people, say, geez, I got a heavy tank, I got a bad back, as some people I know, including myself. And sometimes you might need a little help getting down. not a problem. The crew are there to help you out. They'll carry your tank down to the dive platform. You can get your tank on either on the platform with some assistance, or you could get your tank on in the water, depending on the conditions. So staff crew will always be there to help you out getting into and out of the water. Now, one of the interesting things is, when all of the area under the dive deck is the engine room, and generators and compressors generate a lot of hot air, a lot of heat. That air is vented right in the middle of this area here, and that is where you can hang your wetsuits and other things right there. And 9 times out of 10, it is pretty darn dry before your next dive. Okay, as I said, the dive deck has a camera table. Camera table has air, if you would like that for your gear, for your cameras. It also has a power source here for recharging in this area as well. Dive briefings are typically done at right before each dive. And actually, your diving schedule usually starts off with an 8 o'clock call for a briefing. Get in the water at around 8:30. Then you get out. Dives are typically an hour long. That's the limit, along with 100-foot diving. And then around 10:30, you go in for the next dive. Next briefing, go in for the next dive. You have a couple of hours out of the water. You get back into the water, typically in a different location on a different mooring, and you're diving at around 2:30 again. So the afternoon continues on, and then the night dive is typically done either before or after dinner, really depending on the time of the year and when the sun sets and the preferences of the crew, or the guests, I should say. So this is what you can expect on the Turks and Caicos Explorer. You'll get a call for the next dive, oftentimes with conch shell, and then you'll get crew when they get a little strange and decide to dress up, and they're looking for divers. So let's get in the water and let's go diving. Here's that stern of the Turks and Caicos Explorer. And this is a good time to talk about what are the conditions. Well, the water temperature in Turks and Caicos generally ranges from a very low of 74 degrees in the winter to a high of 84 degrees in the summer. There is normally very little appreciable current at the sites that we visit, and visibility is pretty consistently between 75 and 150 feet. Because there is such limited currents, good visibility, we consider this area to be a great destination for new divers or divers that may not have been in the water in a while. Depths usually range between 35 to 100 feet. And many of the walls, which are one of the key things in the Turks and Caicos, particularly around West Caicos and French Key, is the walls there start at around 50 feet. So you could have a remarkably wonderful wall dive just on the edge of the wall and still be within limits that are perfectly appropriate for a brand new diver. And for those divers that are more experienced or advanced certified, they can certainly go deeper as they wish. The weather in the Turks and Caicos is remarkably consistent year-round. Temperatures range from about 70 degrees or higher in the winter months to a low of to the low 90s during the summer. most people, or many people, ask me when is the best time to go to the Turks and Caicos, and my standard response is, well, if you have to pick one of the best time, my response is go in August and September, and you will have perfect conditions, unless, of course, you have the storm. But that's where travel insurance comes in, because the conditions during the summer are just absolutely remarkable. The seas are completely calm, the water temperature is 84, 85, and the seas are just wonderful. But other times of the year are absolutely great as well. Water is slightly cooler in April when we start back up in Turks and Caicos, and then it gets continually warmer until peaking out in late August, and then beginning to cool off until it's cooler again in December. So let me show you exactly where we travel. And this would be a typical itinerary. And all of these itineraries are weather dependent. And you noticed how flat the islands are. So if you get a strong easterly wind, that can create problems either for diving or just make the trip less comfortable. So the captain will always adjust the dive itinerary according to the weather conditions that we have to deal with. This is about where we start off. We dock the boat at the Caicos Marina, and then you start off going off to Northwest Point. And this typically is going to be your first or second day of diving. The diving here is about 35, 40, 50 feet. It's the diving isn't oriented towards wall diving in this particular area. There's some very interesting structures that are left over from an old French movie filmed many, many years ago, and it's a good first few dives for a week on a liveaboard. After a day or so in Northwest Point, we typically will move over to West Caicos, and West Caicos is a very low-lying island. It's not an island that's occupied. There's really nothing on it. It's just a small little island with nothing about it that's helpful, except it makes for absolutely wonderful diving right along the wall in this area here. Then, weather permitting, which it usually does, we head on over to French Key. And French Key is just a delightful dive that has some of the friendliest Caribbean reef sharks I have ever encountered. I recall one particular dive just hanging out under the boat at around 50 feet, just going in circles with my camera as I was being circled by a good half dozen Caribbean reef shark, wondering what the heck I was doing there. And then we move back on Friday. So you start off your diving here on Sunday, maybe do 5 dives around Northwest Point, head on over to West Caicos, spend a couple of days there, move on over on Wednesday or Thursday and Wednesday, Thursday into French Key, and then finish up with 2 dives here, and then head on home Friday, getting back to the marina shortly after noon on Friday. That gives you enough time to make an afternoon flight the following day and not worry about having to have a problem on your flight. Okay, what can you expect to see? Well, shark, Caribbean reef shark, walls. And because the islands are so flat, there's very little runoff. You get excellent visibility. Turks and Caicos is a destination for wall diving, and it's very well known for the wall diving, but it is also a place for macro. This is divers finishing up their dive, and they're going to be doing their safety stop in this area. We always have 2 lines off the side of the boat. One of the lines will typically have a regulator should one diver need a little extra time on their safety stop, or maybe they overestimated the amount of air they had in their had left in their tank when they came back to the boat. And you can see divers just hanging out there. It is always fishy around the boat. Here's another picture. And again, this is the type of sea life that you're going to see in the Turks and Caicos. And of course, there's the shark. And this next picture is a historical picture. This is called Spanish anchor because that's exactly what it is. It's an encrusted anchor from an old Spanish galleon that lost its anchor many, many years ago in the Turks and Caicos. We have remarkable variety of opportunities for pictures. I've come up from dives with people on Turks and Caicos Explorer, and they were just terribly frustrated because they didn't have their macro lens, or they didn't have their regular lens. There's so much to see, and that's the wonderful thing about Turks and Caicos. That's the type of sea life that you can see. We have a video coming up in just a moment that puts all of that together.
That was awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I would like to take the time to thank you very much for joining us this week.
I think that was pretty enticing already. And we are going to move straight into our Q&A. Irene has been monitoring what you have put in the chat. So any additional questions that you have right now is your opportunity to put them in the chat, and Jean will attempt to answer them for us. Irene, take it away.
Sounds good. The first question was about a booster shot. Is the government mandating that a booster is required, or any mention of that as yet?
They haven't specifically required the booster. We expect that they will, but like so many things with COVID, things change rapidly. Some destinations are requiring boosting.
We have a question, is night diving available at French Key? Just a comment that the shark diving there is great.
Yes, the shark diving there is wonderful, and yes, we do night dives. Obviously, night dives are going to be weather and conditions dependent, but we night dive French Key all the time.
Where is the nearest chamber?
There's a chamber in Turks and Caicos itself, in Providenciales, and I believe Grand Turk.
Are there any migrations or natural events such as coral spawning, bioluminescence, anything like that?
We had whales come by this year. We get the occasional mantas that swing by. We get dolphin that swing by, but there's no specific migration other than you have the humpback whales that are moving down south in the winter to the Silverbank area, and sometimes they veer off in towards the Turks and Caicos. So we have seen whales fairly close to the islands, but it wouldn't be a whale watching destination.
Any spicy options with regard to food?
Our cook will make what you would like to make. It's spicy, if you like spicy, yeah. So when our people join the boat, we ask them, what type of food do you like? Tell us what you don't like, what you can't eat. But we certainly try to meet people's needs that way.
Okay. Jack is asking, what are the COVID restrictions or protocols while on board the vessel?
Well, everybody is vaccinated that gets on into the island. They're tested. We check temperatures. We ask people to not congregate together real close, but you're on a boat. And we don't require masks inside unless people feel more comfortable doing that. They can certainly do that, but that's not specifically required of them.
Anne is asking, where can you get a PCR test done prior to your departure? Just so that you know, we in Canada need a PCR test not more than 72 hours in advance of our return flight.
Right.
And I'm sure the Americans also need their PCR test a day prior.
We make arrangements on Friday when we get back to the dock for people to have an antigen or PCR test as required. We put that on your onboard charges, and we make all of the arrangements for you. The antigen tests are coming back very quick. The PCR tests are maybe a little bit longer, but still people are able to fly back, or they have been able to fly back to Canada after having a PCR test for their return. People may want to consider spending an extra day just to give themselves a little extra bit of relaxation and a little extra time to be sure, so there's no worry about getting the test results back. We haven't had a problem so far, so it's been working well.
Mike is asking, seems to be wrecks there. Can you dive through the wrecks?
Well, there really aren't wrecks. What was in the picture there was the film set that was the French film crew built in that area for an underwater-oriented movie many years ago. So you can swim all through that old wreck of a film set, and there's a lot of cool stuff to see on it. But there really aren't any diveable wrecks in the areas that we dive in Turks and Caicos.
Someone is asking, since we dive from the mothership, can we dive with buddies while moored? That is there unlimited diving?
We allow for 5 dives a day, and that's really what people can accommodate. So during the time that everybody is diving into water, we want everybody out of the water in an hour. We try to limit the dives to an hour. We ask that people buddy dive at all times, but we when all of our divers back on board in about an hour. The reason for that is a lot of times we change moorings. The conditions may change, and we want to make sure that we have everybody back on board.
Do you also offer certifications on board the vessel?
Yes, we do. We can do open water completions. We can do advanced. We can certainly do nitrox, and we can do a variety of specialties. If people have a specific request, we'd need to know that, especially as it relates to specialties, to make sure that we have an instructor on board at the time for that particular specialty.
So we want to make sure we're getting to this, because we do have a prize draw tonight. Yeah. Thanks to Explorer Ventures, we are actually drawing tonight for a buy one, get one free on board the Turks and Caicos. That is quite a prize. It has to be taken before they go back to the Silver Banks next year, so it's mostly for 2022. And whoever is the winner in a moment, we will make sure that you get all the details. So we are putting up your names, those of you who registered in time. We have had 100 and somewhat registrations here today. We just see here. 105. So we're doing from 1 to 105. And you need to be here to win. So let's drum roll. Number 70. So let me see who is number 70. Ken Vatour. Are you here, Ken? Put your name in the chat if you're here.
He's here.
Oh, there he is. All right. Congratulations. We will be in touch with you. We have your email address, so that definitely will happen. Congratulations. I want to remind you, so there's more of you that can win, to contribute your top 3 dive destinations to us, either to diving@flyindsea.com or on our Facebook or Instagram pages. The draw is on the 25th of February, and we will be publishing the top 25 destinations then. Our next webinar date is February 10th at the Philippines with Magic Resorts that are on Morbol and Bohol. So that is it for tonight. Jean, thank you so much. I hope that we will be earning your bookings. We know that you do have a choice of where and how to book, and we appreciate your bookings. Us and the dive shops that we support depend on that. And so we do appreciate this. Thank you very much. And we hope that we will see you in 2 weeks. Good night, everyone.